All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to decode some absolutely fundamental rules of economics, and we're going to do it through the lens of pure pop culture. Look, whether you're a diehard fan waiting in a virtual queue for tickets or just someone buying groceries on a Tuesday, the underlying mechanics of how we spend our hard-earned money are exactly the same. We're going to explore those hidden forces that drive our buying decisions every single day. Let's figure this out together. So, late 2023 rolls around, and Taylor Swift drops the Erased Tour announcement. And it wasn't just a concert series, right? It was literally a global economic phenomenon. Tickets vanished in minutes. Almost immediately, resale sites were seeing prices in the thousands of dollars per ticket. By the end of 2024, the tour had grossed over $1 billion globally, making it the highest-grossing tour by a female artist in history. We're talking about a massive, massive wave of economic energy here. Let's do a quick thought experiment. Think back for a second. How much would you have honestly been willing to pay to see a teenage Taylor Swift perform at some small local venue? Probably not a whole lot, right? Maybe $20 if a friend swore it was a good show. But flash forward to 2023 and face value tickets are $200 and up, with thousands of people eagerly paying that, and honestly, way more. The core product, Taylor Swift singing on a stage, is basically the exact same thing, but the economic reality surrounding it has completely transformed. Section 1, Anatomy of a Demand Curve. Okay, the crucial starting point here is figuring out what the word demand actually means. We use it casually all the time to just mean wanting something, but in economics, it's a lot stricter. Demand requires two things, willingness and ability. If you see a vintage Taylor Swift vinyl record for $25, you might really want it, so you're willing. But if your wallet is completely empty, well, you aren't able. You do not represent economic demand. On the flip side, say you see a Rolling Stones record for $15 and you actually have the cash. If you don't even like the band, you lack the willingness. See? You really need both to create actual demand. Now here's a distinction that trips up a lot of people. Quantity demanded versus overall demand. If a record store prices that Swift album at $20 and consumers buy exactly 50 copies, that specific amount at that specific price is the quantity demanded. Simple enough. But demand with a capital D is the bigger picture. It's the total amount of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to buy at all possible prices in a given time period. It's the whole shebang. Let's ground this with a real-world example. Meet Tyler. Tyler absolutely loves eating at Jasmine's Pizzeria. Jasmine decides to survey Tyler to see exactly how many pizzas he'd buy per week at different prices, assuming nothing else in his life changes. This is what we call an individual demand schedule. At $10 a pie, Tyler is all in. He buys a ton of pizza, but bump that price up to $30 a pie? Yeah, he's barely buying any. When we plot those data points out on a graph, we get a downward sloping line called a demand curve. It perfectly visualizes Tyler's willingness and ability to pay. But hey, Jasmine can't keep her pizzeria open with just Tyler, right? She opens her doors to the public and gets 3 more regulars, Amber, Kayla, and Louise. When we take all of their individual quantities demanded and add them together at each price point, boom, we get market demand. This broader curve is a total game changer for businesses because it shifts our focus from just one guy's behavior to the entire market's behavior. Section 2, the law of demand. Economist David Henderson actually calls this the most famous law in economics. It is a strict inverse relationship. As the price of a product increases, the quantity demanded drops, and vice versa. As the price decreases, the quantity demanded rises. They move in exact opposite directions. It's pretty much universal. But why? Why are our brains wired to act like this? Well, it breaks down into 3 core psychological and financial drivers that explain exactly why the law of demand works. Let's walk through them really quickly. Diminishing marginal utility, the income effect, and the substitution effect. Step 1, diminishing marginal utility. Sounds super academic, but just think about a $10 all-you-can-eat buffet. Your first plate of food? Absolute heaven. Delicious, totally worth the $10. But by your 3rd or 4th plate, you are completely stuffed. The food is really losing its appeal. The law of diminishing marginal utility basically just tells us that our satisfaction drops with each extra unit we consume. So to convince you to keep eating or keep buying, the business actually has to lower the price because they know you're getting way less satisfaction for your money each time. Step 2 is the income effect. This is all about your real income, which is really just a fancy way of saying how much your money can actually buy in the real world. Let's say your weekly lunch budget is strictly $10 and pizza is $1 a slice. Great, you can buy 10 slices. But if that price jumps to $2, your same $10 only buys 5 slices. Even though your paycheck hasn't changed one bit, that price hike effectively slashed your purchasing power right in half, forcing you to buy less. And step 3 is the substitution effect. Let's face it, consumers are incredibly adaptable. If the price of a slice of pizza at Jasmine's suddenly jumps from $1 to $2, but the sandwich shop literally right next door keeps their price at $1, what do? You substitute. You abandon the pizza for a cheaper, similar alternative. These 3 factors perfectly combine to guarantee that as prices rise, we naturally buy less. Moving on to Section 3, TIPS, shifting the curve. So what happens to demand when factors other than price change? To answer that, I want you to memorize a brilliant little acronym, TIPS-E. These are the 5 major determinants that shift the entire demand curve, meaning consumers suddenly want way more or way less of a product at every single price point. They are tastes, income, population, substitutes and complements, and expectations. Let's break a few of these down so they make sense. Let's zoom in on the I, income. Imagine you hit the jackpot and won the lottery tomorrow. Your weekly grocery list would completely rewrite itself, right? In economics, we divide this changing behavior into 2 categories. A normal good is something you buy more of when you get richer, like finally upgrading to those fancy lobster dinners. An inferior good, on the other hand, is something you buy less of when your income rises, like ditching the canned Spam because you can finally afford real steak. Your changing income literally shifts your entire demand curve for those specific items. Now let's look at the S in TIPS, the price of related goods. Things in the economy are super interconnected. If the price of burritos drops dramatically, it actually hurts pizza demand because people substitute the cheaper burritos. But other goods are complements, meaning they're almost always used together. If peanut butter suddenly drops to 25 cents a jar, what do you think happens? People rush out and buy a whole lot more jelly to go with it. A price change in one single aisle ripples across the entire market. And then there's the P in TIPS, population. If a massive surge of summer tourists arrives in Hawaii, Jasmine's Pizzeria suddenly has way more customers walking by. The entire demand curve physically shifts to the right on the graph. Even if the price of the pizza stays exactly the same, the quantity demanded increases across the board just because of that outside factor. Oh, and by the way, looping back to Taylor Swift for a second, her exploding global fame over the last decade was a massive shift in consumer tastes, which pushed her own demand curve incredibly far to the right. Section 4. Elasticity, measuring consumer response. For a local pizza joint, guessing what customers will do is pretty straightforward. But for giant global corporations, it is high-stakes math. They use a concept called elasticity, which is just a measure of consumer responsiveness. If a company raises their price by just a tiny bit and their sales completely crash overnight, that demand is elastic. Consumers are highly responsive. But if a company hikes the price and people begrudgingly keep buying it anyway, that demand is inelastic. Corporations literally obsess over this metric so they don't accidentally price themselves right out of business. Which brings us to one final, kind of provocative thought to wrap up this explainer. What is your personal elasticity? Think about your own daily life for a second. What is the one product, whether it's your absolute favorite morning coffee, a specific brand of sneakers, or a ticket to see your favorite pop star, that you would keep buying no matter how high the price gets? Understanding your own demand curve is really the first step to mastering your own economy. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep questioning the world around you.